T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Patrick Rooney, founder of Old School, Natural Health, Success, and Freedom. Where's Mel Gibson when you need him? Anyway, we're going to talk about, I haven't been on for a little while and love to do live streams. They're just fun. They're kind of wild and you don't know what's going to happen. And that's what life is anyway. So what the heck? So we're going to talk about Ukraine. We're going to talk about Ukraine, Russia, and the U.S. And that means Zelensky, that means Putin, that means Trump. And that's going to get very interesting. We might have something going on very soon with it, and we want to get ahead of the curve, and we want to talk to you guys and ask questions. I've got a lot of questions, and I want to get some understanding. So welcome to everybody. Welcome to the chat people. Welcome to everybody there. And we're going to get ripping and rolling here. So let me add my friends here. My friend Brian J. Pombo. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, Patrick. Great to be here.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Brian is a consultant, business consultant, and a political mind, too. Very sharp political mind. He's been around politics probably much of his life, so he's very sharp on that as well. But business, marketing are what he does very, very well. My good friend, Marc Yaffee, laughwithmarc.com. Marc is a professional comedian, a very funny dude, and known him forever. A lot of talents, and it's good to have him as a friend. So Marc, and everybody on the show is going to have a little bit different perspective, so I can't wait to hear everybody's opinion here. My friend Jerry McClellan. How are you, Jerry?
All is well. Glad to be here.
Cool. Jerry's business is fantastic.
Fantastic Dimension. It's a
Jerry McClellan, fantasticdimension.com.
graphic novel, soon to be animated series, hopefully, once I get funding.
Excellent.
Producer, so yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a very interesting site that you have, and maybe we can get to it a little bit later and show the people. That would be cool. Marc is laughwithmarc.com. Yes.
M-A-R-C. My parents couldn't spell.
And Brian Pombo, brianpombo.live. There we go. All right, guys. So we are going to have it out here about Ukraine, Russia, what's going on. I've been learning a lot over time. I've been always wanting to understand what's going on. I never felt like I had a grip on it. And I finally, after 3 years of war, unfortunately, I hate to say it that way, but it took me 3 years of their war for me to understand even a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah.
Brian, your wife is from Ukraine.
That's right.
So we're going to get into first the background of how all this stuff started, right? So at one point, Ukraine was a part of Russia, right? and that was for a long time. And would you say most Ukrainians, once Ukraine became its own country, was there still a huge amount of Russians there, or Ukrainians that wanted to be either spoke Russian or were very sympathetic to the motherland?
Well, the whole country spoke Russian. So
Okay.
I mean,
There was no Ukrainian language then.
Well, no, it existed. Ukrainian still existed, and there
Yeah.
were still a lot, but it tended to be the older people that spoke Ukraine, people that still had some memory of pre-Soviet Ukraine, and
Right.
so there was still a little bit of it there. My wife grew up speaking both, but Russian, that only because once the Soviets fell, they did a huge push to create and reinstill some form of nationalism in Ukraine.
Right.
So they got their new anthem and their new flag, and they made sure that the language was the official language of the country, and they pushed it everywhere. And so the younger generation, some of them don't speak Russian, but at the time when I met her in the early 2000s, there was still very much a lot of pro-Russian sentiment. And even when I met her, she did not have a bad opinion of Putin, which surprised the heck out of me because I actually knew about him at that time. I had background. I knew what he was about and his KGB background and everything. So I was amazed.
Now, what are the young people think in Ukraine these days? Is it a whole different thing? Like with the younger generation, they're much more Ukraine's our country, and
oh yeah, no, after he took Crimea, I mean, it was
that was it, huh?
that put everybody on the same page for the most part within the country. There were still some pro-Russian elements in the politics, but besides that, I mean, most people, she came from, so you kind of have an Eastern-Western Ukraine difference.
Yeah.
And the Eastern Ukrainians tended to be a little bit more pro-Russian. So
because they're closer to Russia,
Kiev,
right?
They're closer. The urban side, they tended to be a lot more pro-Russian. That hasn't been the case for a number of years now.
Really? So the way this started out, well, let's go back a little bit too, is let's take it to, let's say, 1991 or so, okay, when the Soviet Union broke up, right? You had Reagan come in, tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev and all that. And then basically they broke up. Now, is the Soviet Union and Russia a much different thing? I hear some people say, well, Russia is much, Soviets were communists, godless communists, whereas the Russians they have their Russian church. I don't know I think they're very tight with the Orthodox Church there, I believe. But how different is Russia today and the philosophy, the way that Putin runs it, let's say, and the Soviet Union?
Well, economically, it's a huge difference. That you have free market economy, and then you have these oligarchs that came in. They broke up a lot of the nationalized industries, petrochemicals and minerals and transportation, and the government kind of divvied them up amongst their cronies, and these guys got in early. Became a lot of billionaires created, which obviously didn't.
They didn't have that in the Soviet Union, huh?
Exactly. So it created a lot of wealth. It created a lot of corruption, and unfortunately, it created a lot of greed, and then that nationalist sentiment. I think when the economy had some problems, I think it's like you see in a lot of countries, leaders will become more nationalistic and maybe more militaristic when they know they have economic problems, try to look outward. China does this. China's struggling with their economy. You see them do that. Putin, same thing. He's been to Chechnya. They've invaded Georgia. They've been in Ukraine. So he's no stranger to aggressive behavior.
Yes, and I mean, and Putin was a KGB, as you pointed out too, Brian. I thought from way back, I knew he was KGB, and I'd always heard he was a cutthroat. And if you cross the guy, maybe you get poisoned, or they have a long reach. He reaches into other countries and comes after you. Yeah. But I always had an understanding. That's why I think, and I don't really have a dog in the fight, so to speak, but I don't dislike necessarily Putin or whatever, but I always thought that in the old days he was known that he was like a cold-blooded killer, basically. And it seemed like he got a makeover at some point where he was. I didn't hear that so much. A lot of Americans kind of admired him. And does anybody want to speak to that? There was a change, I think, that
Yeah,
happened.
I think what it really comes down to is it's more of, okay, compare him with everybody else. And if you compare a lot of what Russia has done internationally in comparison to a lot of who people would call globalists or international socialists, they saw him as being closer to more of an American conservative ideal, even though
Okay.
he's still very much a dictator.
Right. Well, and also I may be getting a little ahead of myself, but Russia, I mean, for whatever reasons, and we can talk about the reasons that pulled Russia and want to maybe, strike out and go into Ukraine. Maybe some of the reasons that they were afraid of. I know in the 90s that they were told, at least by, I think it was James Baker, who was working for Reagan at the time, or I guess Bush Sr. later, but James Baker was saying, okay, we're not going to let NATO get an inch closer, at least from Germany. So I don't know how that works, but at some point, is that an excuse from Putin, or is there a legitimacy to that? In other words, okay, we thought NATO was over here, now they're starting to crowd us.
Yeah, that's been my perspective since sort of discovering all this, and is the fear of sort of this encroachment by NATO and creating this vulnerability right at his border, right? If Ukraine joins NATO and becomes more and more westernized, right? More Americanized, and it's already happening, right? Brian already mentioned regarding just the language itself, in a newer generation that has a different sentiment towards Putin and Russia versus their elders, right? And he sees this, right? Like everything we're saying, he sees this, right? And he's like, I don't like it. And it's from that vantage point, it makes sense the moves he's making, right? Using force and everything, because in his mind, his hand is force, right? Um, and you mentioned propaganda, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm like, man, it's so messed up and so convoluted, right? Because there is a sentiment in the U.S. and the West regarding Putin, seeing him as this almost heroic leader,
Right.
and a lot of that is through memes and social media,
Yeah.
and it's almost comical if it wasn't real, right? Like it's like, are you serious, right?
Right. So,
Like I always
so
picture him on the horse, right, shirtless,
oh
on
yeah, shirtless on the
stallion,
horse.
right? Like, and it's like, but it's not
Cue the
about,
romantic music.
yeah, it's not about taking side. Like I'm not rooting for Russia
Right.
if I say I don't want this war.
Well, yeah, and I'm gonna get to that too, because you're more of a what do you call isolationist, or
Well, I'm looking at it more from a libertarian, small
libertarian. There you go,
perspective, right?
libertarian.
So
Okay.
non-aggression principles, all that kind of good stuff. So
Okay. So what was it? Sweden and Finland, I think, are in NATO now, and they were supposed to be buffer countries originally, as I understand. Is that right? Anybody?
Well, Finland has what, an 800-mile border with Russia.
Okay.
And I know on one hand he's saying, well, we don't want them on our border. Now you have a NATO country on the border. But for some reason, Ukraine is the red line. And I suspect that, as much as Putin is doing these strategic moves, I think it's all about, if they did become part of NATO and it succeeds as a democratic society, it's so close to Russia and still intertwined culture in a lot of ways that the people in Russia are like, hey, they're not only not. It's not even so much I think he thinks NATO is going to invade Russia, as the fact he doesn't want to see a successful NATO ally
Oh,
next to him that destabilizes his country. They say, well, look how good my cousins, my relatives live in Ukraine. We have mixed marriages.
see,
Why they're
there's
doing pretty good. Why are we putting up with this guy? Maybe we need to have a revolution. So I think that's a lot of his motivation.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. Like
Well,
Yeah, I think it weakens his power in Russia because now it's kind of like, look what Ukraine did. Maybe we can do that too, right? And
Yeah.
you're going to have more and more of that. And of course, the U.S., Europe, and the rest of NATO are going to assist with that.
It, NATO's going to isn't NATO pretty much a non-starter though for Ukraine? I mean, there's no way that Russia would agree to that, right?
Well,
Yeah, I don't think so.
Brian, do you want to get on?
at this point, that's not going to happen anytime soon,
Yeah.
especially with Trump nixing it right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I honestly think I don't hear it often enough. I'm surprised. I think NATO's an excuse. It's a convenient excuse. He wasn't complaining that much about NATO when he invaded
Crimea?
the South,
Yeah.
Crimea.
Yeah.
And he didn't use NATO as an excuse to go into Georgia and the other places. It's the excuse of the time that's useful to him.
So why did he go in then?
Because he's been very clear about that he wants to put together, and he hinted at this in the Tucker Carlson interview. If you
that's
sit
right.
and watch that with a critical eye, you can hear what he's saying. He doesn't see Ukraine as being a separate country. He said it right there. They are us. They want to be part of us. I mean this is what he's saying. That's what it regardless of whether it's propaganda or not. He wants the same lines, not of Soviet Union. He wants the same lines as Imperial Russia.
Back in the day. He
wants Finland. He wants parts of Poland. He wants Ukraine. But
Finland and
about this.
all these countries.
All of his administration says the same thing, and everyone acts like they're not saying this. They've always said this. Finland was part of Russia, and they want it part of Russia again. Yeah. They want Alaska. They want these places back. Everyone could,
as long as we get Greenland.
Yeah, everyone says, well, no, but Greenland's huge. If you look at where it stands in the whole line, that's not just a play against China. That's a play against Russia also. That's very specific.
But by the way, I was thinking about this, and I'm glad that glad this came up. And I wasn't necessarily going to ask it at this time, but here it is. In the back of my mind, I've thought a lot about consolidation of countries. You read the Bible, different things, or even talk about, what was it where they had the different, was it not Brave New World? What was the one where they had like Eurasia and they had all these different?
1984.
1984.
Yeah.
So you have this idea of like blocks, and and like Israel wants Bible land. They want the land that they had in the Bible, right? They want. Right? I'm not trying to be funny about it, but
no, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly.
They want that, and Trump, is talking about the Panama Canal and Greenland and things, and then he named Gulf of America was Gulf of Mexico,
right.
And I'm kind of wondering, is there a block war a little bit? In other words, are countries trying to acquire certain areas that become power blocks, like many years ago? Remember when G.W. Bush was in power and he wanted to have a NAFTA superhighway, and at some point we were going to become like Canada, U.S. and Mexico, like one, country kind of thing.
Well, it never ends. I mean, that's what Euro is all about.
That's what the European Union is about.
Is all about that.
Right.
And that it never really ends. It just gets a little more louder and in your face over time,
But it seems to be that's the way it's going, right?
It's never stopped, right? I mean, conquest and land acquisition, that is the stuff of government, right? Government exists to acquire and maintain and retain and to expand territory. And if you're not expanding, then you're dying.
Then you're shrinking.
And it's the same in the U.S. And the U.S. just isn't as blatant about it, but that's what all these wars overseas are, and wanting Ukraine to join NATO and being in Iraq and all. It's like
I think we've been pretty blatant about it. Back over the last 100 years. Philippines. We took over Guam, Puerto Rico, Cuba. We've been South.
Unlike most countries, we willingly give some of it back. I mean, the Philippines could have still been part of us. A lot of those places Cuba could still be a part of America.
Well, true, but this brings up the part about. I was going to mention getting certain ground back. and I forgot what it was. Oh, okay. 2014. Let's take it. Let's lay a little bit more groundwork as we started. 2014. Obama's in power. Joe Biden is the vice president. Russia or Ukraine has a pro-Russian president. At some point, it may have been a little murky as to the reasons why. I mean, there were protests against the guy. How much of those were real and how much were ginned up by the United States and others?
Or both.
Or both.
I think you had a lot of both going on there in the Orange Revolution. I was paying pretty close attention to it back then.
And you could say that we picked the leader. We got rid of that guy or helped get rid of, I forgot his name, Poroshenko or whatever his name is. We got rid of him, helped get rid of him, and brought in new leadership. Even was it Victoria Nuland was caught on a phone, on a hot phone, saying as much, basically picking the next leader of a foreign country.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff gets a little murky. I used very murky. But see, I used to see the world as kind of like good guys and bad guys. Okay. And maybe it was a little cleaner back in the day when Reagan and Thatcher and the Pope, we had actually had a good Pope back then. And, it seemed like there was like, to me, I mean, people will disagree with me, but I know there's Reagan haters out there too. But I was a big Reagan fan. And it seemed like things were pretty clear back then. But like the good guys, the bad guys. But I noticed that there's a tendency for almost all of us to want to pick a good guy and a bad guy. If this guy's bad, so we have to, let's say Ukraine is bad, therefore Putin and Russia are good. And I don't see it the same way anymore. Well, how do you guys see it?
I'm right there with you, Patrick. It's not black and white. It's not good versus evil anymore. And honestly, it never really was, right? But in reality, yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier about, and even the conversation we had on Facebook and everything. It's like my take is I'm tired of the wars because I feel like it really does. There is no net benefit for your U.S. citizen, right? There's no net benefit for us. It's just we're just throwing money away, sending it overseas, contributing to the money printing and creating more aggression. And then there's going to be blowback eventually, just like we saw when we went to Afghanistan and Iraq. And, we have these terrorists now. And it's like it's a never ending cycle.
Yes.
And the only people that benefit are the people who are way at the top, who are pulling the strings and making these decisions. And, what we call the oligarchs or the elites, whatever you want to call them, they're the ones that are benefiting from all this because they're making money and they're deflating the dollar, but they're enriching themselves while they do it.
Right.
And we're sending our children to go. My son served in the Air Force. It's like, and I think about that, like, man, what if he gets deployed? What if it's like for what? To die, to fight and die for a construct of an ideal that isn't really real, right? Like, why do we care that Ukraine is a democracy?
Well, here's a question.
You know?
Here's a question. Because I know people that would say Ukraine are freedom fighters, that Putin is evil, very evil man. Not necessarily arguing that necessarily, but that Ukraine is really like a white hat and they are righteous and we should be supporting them with all we've got. And I would ask a question. You might know this, probably Brian, probably pretty well. Did Ukraine ever have a chance to actually win, or just funding them is just caused? In other words, if they weren't funded, they would have probably sued for peace a lot quicker. But because they're being funded, they didn't feel like they had to have peace. Did they ever really have a chance to win this war? Anybody can answer that, but go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
only
Brian.
as a proxy for the rest of the world. I mean, any anti-Putin forces that, or whatever you want to call them, good or bad, that this is a proxy war. This is them either trying to hold Putin back from taking over the rest of Europe or the rest of Eastern Europe, or it's them trying to knock him down a peg. I honestly don't think anybody planned on this.
Well,
I because, and you can tell by how they were. What's that?
They didn't plan on the invasion or Ukraine.
No, they didn't plan on it lasting.
No.
And you could tell by how they acted leading up to it. The
Right.
last thing that Biden did was pull out all the troops and basically roll out a red carpet for Putin and say, well, that's how it goes.
What troops did you say Biden pulled out? We weren't in Ukraine. Well,
yes, we were. We had troops in
Yeah,
Ukraine,
yeah,
and we had defenses in Ukraine. We did.
We had
What's
the
that?
small amount of advisors. We didn't have any.
No. We had actual military in Ukraine that they pulled out. They were not meant to be defensive forces. They weren't meant to be defensive forces, but they were there, and he called a lot of them out because he didn't want them there when all the stuff was going down.
Yeah.
Well, if Putin wants to reconstitute the old Soviet Union, old Russia, and he's going to keep trying to do that unless there's sufficient force there. Let's say Trump equals sufficient force to keep him from doing that, maybe. If they're trying to stop that, and you would think they would want to stop that, shouldn't they have some type of war or something to stop him from doing that, if that's the case?
No, he went in because he was given the signal that he could go in. So no one was standing up while he was up against the border. No one was standing up and saying, if you go in, bad things are going to happen. No, everyone stood back and said, if you go in, we're going to write a really nasty letter to the United Nations. We're really good. I mean, that's about it. That's all he got. That's why he goes in increments and he waits for a signal. He didn't get a signal not to come in except from the Ukrainian government, as you would expect.
So what stops him from going in? What is it? What is the force that stops?
Is that everyone was saying, we were watching it pretty closely. I thought because we still had family there. So my wife's aunt, cousin, and grandmother were still in Kiev. And in Kiev, they didn't think anything was going to happen because, he does this all the time. And I've been telling them for years to get out of there.
Yeah.
But we're watching. And the one thing everyone in the news and all the pundits were saying, okay, well, when are they going to fly out the president? When are they going to get him out of there? Because that's one thing that happens when you have an invading force. You get the leadership of the country out and have them set up a proxy government somewhere else. And it didn't happen. He stayed. And nobody expected that to happen. Here's you got this actor that became president. No one expected him to stick around on either side. It's when he stuck around and actually started putting out like an actual defense. That's when he started getting support from everyone.
Well, okay. So doesn't that show something? And I'm not a big Zelensky fan by any means, but doesn't that show something that the guy stayed in his country? I mean, and fought.
It says something, and I don't think. And it could be that he was chosen by the CIA. I don't know who installed him there. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you can tell that the temperature changed in the whole world. And it took a little while, but within a few weeks, you had large amounts of the world government coming to back him with supplies, with money, with funding. Right. And one of the last ones to back him was Biden. But when he did, that was a huge piece, because when they started just pumping money into there and support, that's what held things back. And the fact that Putin puts on a good show and he has a big bluff, but you could tell he's not all that well organized militarily and had a whole lot of issues. If you've been watching all the issues he's had with his commanders and everything else. And I mean, it's been a mess. Okay, you would have expected a better showing from him.
Okay. I'm wondering, go ahead, Jerry. I think you wanted to say something.
No, I say that's interesting. And I'm just in agreement with Brian. Like it's like, I don't think they expected it to last this long. They thought it would be sort of this 7-day war type thing, and Zelensky kind of surprised some people. I was surprised myself.
Yeah.
I didn't expect much from him. I mean, he's pretty bold. I still don't take him seriously as a leader. I know he was, quote unquote, democratically elected.
Would you like him to get a suit?
it would be nice. It would help.
Okay.
Him and Fetterman could be buddies, right? So
Uh,
yes, but
It's a
they
war.
have similar
You're running around in a war. You don't need to be wearing a suit.
yeah.
I
Okay.
guess not, right?
Well, that
He's
brings
not
up.
on the front lines though, too. I mean,
That's true.
he's got his
Yeah.
He's
That,
chilling. That's
outfit,
what
but
I'm
it's
saying. Like, this guy is a show, and that's the thing to not look over. Like, he is an actor. He is someone who knows how to communicate and how to present himself to the public.
which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Reagan was an
Well,
actor, and
I agree, but keep in mind though, Reagan had an actual political history, right?
yes,
He
he
was
did.
president of the Screen Actors
Yeah,
Guild, and then he was governor. I think two
2
terms,
terms. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
He endorsed Goldwater and all that
yeah,
good stuff, and then
yeah,
ran for president. It's
yeah.
like, but Zelensky was in a reality show or something, and
Right, comedian. Yeah,
and
Like
then he gets
we have
elected
the
president.
same thing in the United
Right,
States, though. I mean, we have a president now.
bankrolled by a Russian oligarch. By the way,
right, but that's my point.
just saying.
There's nothing in his history to say we should take this guy seriously. He was an actor. Like,
Yes,
literally, he went from actor to president. Reagan went from, president of Screen Actors Guild to governor to endorsing candidates.
understood.
That's a whole
Yeah,
different.
it's a different animal. Yeah.
So
Okay. I'm gonna bring in a couple things. And Mr. Sandy LaFontaine is in chat. He's been going nuts with chat, so I'm going to try to throw up at least something he's coming with here. Let me show one of his or a couple of his chats here. So he says, agreement to not expend NATO not 1 inch east violated as direct provocation directed against Russia, which we did deal with earlier in the show. Policy of expanding NATO equals encirclement, which you kind of said as well.
What agreement is Mr. Sandy
Jerry.
referring to there exactly?
What's that?
What agreement is Mr. LaFontaine referring to? Agreement not to expand
Well,
NATO?
this is, I think, when James Baker in the 90s said that they're not going to move NATO
yeah,
1 inch
that,
closer. That was from Germany. I don't know if that means 1 inch from anywhere, but
You know,
that was the
well,
general sentiment with Ukraine too, is that
yeah,
they would remain neutral for the most part. They wouldn't join
right.
NATO, but they're not officially part of Russia, and it kind of just stayed that way. There was no, but as soon as there was an actual aggressive push for Ukraine to join NATO, that's what really incited Putin to act, right? To actually
Right.
do
I
something.
think so.
That
No?
was kind of, and I'm saying perceptually, obviously there's
Yeah.
nuance, but that was the big issue was, oh, so you're saying you really do want to join NATO and you're going to make moves and you're going to, do all these things to actually make it official. Okay, we can't have that. And
Well, didn't Putin want to join NATO too? Offer to join, and they turned him down.
yeah, of course.
well, it could be a little jealous.
That's what do they call that when you have a conflict of interest? Maybe. That's funny. Okay,
So I
Mr.
think he's. I
Go ahead,
think
Ryan.
he is referring to that agreement that
Yes.
was made to where the Britain and America would back up Ukraine in case Russia ever invaded. The problem
Oh,
is
yes.
Russia did invade.
Yeah.
They took over
Caught their bluff.
Crimea. They took over a huge portion of percentage wise of Ukraine, and the whole world just went, well, what are you going to do? That crazy Putin guy.
Well, it was under
And
the
that's
guise
I'm
that
sorry
they
that
voted,
the
though, right?
agreement was out the window at that point.
Right.
Didn't the people of Crimea, at least that's the narrative, is that they voted for that? Like
Well,
they-
that's what he always says, that they did not vote for it. If they
I mean,
did, it
that's
was
what
only
the
after they
state
had invaded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
They vote in a Russian election. We'll work this out.
But
85%. Yay.
By the way, that was another weird one to me. Like Zelensky is a dictator, but Putin isn't a dictator. The guy's been.
Okay, that's a Trump conversation. We can get into that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll hold that if we need
That's
to.
a whole nother.
That's a little weird. The guy's
bad.
been in power for 26 years at least.
Yeah.
With Russian elections.
That's literally a dictator. Yeah.
Yeah, back and forth. But here's the difference. You can call Putin a dictator, and he won't get offended. Zelensky did, and that's part of the little.
Oh well, let me ask you,
play that
Brian.
Trump is doing.
You probably know the law there a little bit. They say that once the war started, you have martial law, and therefore you can't have elections, which they're supposed to have originally in last May.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that? Is that a true statement?
It is. It's not, and I mean technically, I mean, depending on who's defining it, you could call him a dictator, but it's no more a dictator than a lot of situations where you have martial law in the middle. Most countries do not have elections in the middle of
Right.
extension
Right.
extensiential war, to
Right.
where, yeah, I mean, you're either it's all or nothing type of thing. That doesn't happen very often. So I'm not defending it, but at the same time, that was not a serious comment by Trump. That was Trump playing a card to get a reaction.
Okay.
It got the reaction he wanted, and that's why we have a deal today.
Well, that's right.
Minerals.
So we kind of have to say, well, he says some crazy stuff sometimes.
Watch what Trump does
Right.
versus what he says.
Right.
If you listen to everything he says and you take it seriously, you're going to go nuts, regardless of your political side or anything else. You will never survive if you take him seriously. What ends up happening is watch what he does. If anybody actually watched what he did with Ukraine, it's his last 4 years in, it's completely different from the narrative that everyone produces. Ukraine never got more defense from any other American president since they've been an independent nation, except under Trump. Like Trump, hate Trump, that is the case of what happened. A lot of those defenses were shut down and moved out by Biden. Now, Biden gave them money in other ways, and Biden made money off them in other ways.
Right.
But
yeah, that's a different.
that is what actually happened. Now, he could say all these things about, oh, Putin's my buddy, Putin's my pal. Well, he says things about everybody on all times. It doesn't mean anything. It's
Look at little Marco. Little Marco is the one doing
Little Marco and the Rocket Man is now my best friend.
Right,
Before
right,
he was a complete joke, and now he's my best buddy. You can't listen to that. It's all a game for him. He's trying to get a reaction, and it works most of the time.
I'm going to get. I understand. I'm going to give you guys an example of Trump. Mark, I'm not trying to set you off here. I don't want to say what I think of this yet, but I'm going to show you a little bit of example. This is Trump shared on his True Social an AI-generated video about Trump Gaza, what it might look like, okay? So I'm just going to show you guys a little bit here and see if we can get this in there. Wait, let me bring it up so you can see the whole thing. You guys can. Nope, I messed it up. There we go. Ready? It's pretty short.
Donald Trump has reposted this on Truth Social, showing his AI vision for the future of Gaza.
Donald is coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one.
Him on the beach with a shirtless Netanyahu was pretty funny.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. Oh, I lost you there I lost everybody there for a minute. I don't know what happened here. Here we go. Okay, so there's different ways you could look at this. I have my own opinions about this. Mark, I think I already heard you on Facebook, but you're welcome to share them again if you want.
What do you say? He's supposed to be the president, and he's going to sit around and just have these clownish Kim Jong-un cartoons about Gaza? Come on, is that really? Look how many people, Israelis, Palestinians. I mean, it's and this is, maybe it's for fun. I don't know. I think he's got maybe some more important things to do with his time. I mean, obviously his staff's doing this. He's not sitting there doing it.
I think it was. I don't think his staff. I don't think he has any connection to this other than putting it out on True Social without any comment. I think somebody else did it.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Jerry, go ahead. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of that, Jerry?
It's wild. I mean, you can't take it seriously. It's unfortunate to make light of, what's going on over there. I don't appreciate that, but at the same time, it's kind of what you expect from Trump at this point. it's
If I might interject, if it had
yeah,
been
go ahead.
Greenland and he's like, I'm going to do Greenland and we're
Right.
skiing
Right.
and there's people like, in glacier climbing. Okay. No one's dying in Greenland. No one's
Right.
starving.
Yeah,
Hostages aren't still being held. It's a different, I mean, you got to have
yeah.
some.
It's contextually, it's tasteless,
And
and
because
Yeah.
he gets to say whatever he wants to, and we're not supposed to take him seriously. He does whatever he wants to, and we're still not supposed to no one's supposed to react to it. Oh, it's just Trump,
yeah,
Brian?
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a difference by it's not as much about not taking him seriously. It's about not, if you can keep from reacting to every little thing that they put out, you'll
Yeah.
be in a stronger place, regardless of which end of
I
the
agree with
spectrum on politics you are.
Even if I
You
had the
can't-
time to react to him the stuff he's spewing out every 10 minutes, you wouldn't have time. You would go nuts.
Right.
No,
right.
absolutely. But there's a lot of people going nuts right now.
Okay.
That's the narrative. A lot of people think everything he does, that every American that didn't vote for him is losing their mind.
Of
Most people
course.
just want about their business,
No,
All right.
most people, but the people who are highly invested in politics, and I have a lot of friends who are, and they're going bonkers, and they don't know how not to. They're just constantly reacting to him over and over and over again. And when he gets focused on somebody that he needs a reaction from to get, the art of the deal or whatever, like when he was playing with Zelensky, it's a game. It's a game to just manipulate the person into doing what you want them to do, and it works most of the time.
Narrative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're supposed to be running a country, and that's not supposed to be a game show or reality. I mean, you have to have a little bit of decorum. Reagan, you imagine Reagan doing this?
Yeah, you would think.
No.
I don't think we'll ever see anything like Trump again. There's no way to put him back in the box. There's no way to control it. It's the most absurd situation I've ever seen in my life. And we're not going to be able to explain this to our kids. I mean, it's just outrageous.
All right. Here's what the great Mike Jones has to say. Trump is a performer. Years on The Apprentice. It's a valuable skill.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to overrule all of you, in my opinion. Not overrule, because I only have one small vote here. But in my own little mind, I'm going to overrule you, okay? I think this was totally ridiculous and insane. You picked the wrong country, like Mark said. If it was Greenland, you could have fun with the skiing memes or whatever. Right. There's people dying. There are hostages, I think, still there with Hamas. You're talking to people who have religious sensibilities. I may not agree with their religion on everything, or most things I don't, but you have religious Muslim people, and you're showing like a golden idol. And you're showing a woman who wasn't even, I could play back here. There's a woman dancing, or two women dancing. They're not women. They got beards on.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And then you got their arch nemesis laying back on the beach with Trump. And you could say, well, this is all about the art of the deal and blah. I don't say blah 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 because I'd be insulting you, but I don't see it that way. Yes, okay, you can get deals, but deals are not the be all end all to everything. There is, when you're a president, you are representing the country, and you're hopefully, in getting a deal, not going to alienate a whole bunch of people at the same time. Now, I looked online and saw people, and you could say, oh, they're just softies and they're just easily triggered. Maybe they are, but I watched these videos and I looked at the comments, and there was a lot of comments saying this is crazy.
A lot of conservatives were commenting.
Yeah. I don't see.
I'm conservative. This is nuts.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before, Brian. Yes, I think what Trump does can win elections, and he's very effective at many things. He's doing some amazing things right now, okay? And just getting elected, and the courage that he has. We can name a bunch of great things about Trump, but when leadership is also about bringing the people along with you as much as possible, especially in a democratically, we're not Democrat, we're Republican form of government, but we're a democratic republic, basically, whatever you want to call it. You have to bring the people along with you to some extent. And if you're bringing a bunch of people along, good. But if you're alienating the other half, or you're alienating a quarter of the people, what is the point of that? Where does that get you in terms of unity of your country?
I completely agree with you. I agree that it's crass, it's stupid. Even if somebody else put it together, they shouldn't have re-put it out themselves.
Yeah.
I come at it from the perspective as not being on Team Trump. I come at it as a perspective of being a bystander, watching what's happening. And all I can do is chuckle and move on, because the more energy you give to it, the more it has its effectiveness from his perspective.
But I would say,
whether he agreed to post it or not, it's the modus operandi of how the entire Trump machine works.
But that shows his lack of real objectivity. Because if he's just out to troll the Dems or get a reaction in America, that's one thing. But if this is spreading in the Arab world and they're seeing this, they're just getting incensed, and there's still Israeli hostages that haven't been released. Even that's putting people's lives at risk. Is that worth it just to get a rise out of the Dems, or is it?
And that's the thing. It's fine. Somebody who's a hardcore MAGA made the video and thought it was funny, but to reshare it and repost it as an official something from your administration, right, it's irresponsible.
Okay, I'm gonna show you guys something. I'm gonna show you guys some of the people online what they're saying, and they're gonna disagree with me and maybe Brian. And there's different ways to look at things, right? There's different ways you can say, well, if you're on the team, you look at it this way, or you're just kind of looking objectively or whatever. I'm looking at it as like an American citizen. It's like, how does this move the train down the station pretty much? And you can say, well, it's just a joke. We're not the only audience. Americans kind of are savvy. There's people all over that are savvy. You look at certain people that are very religious. They're not in the same world that we're in. They're looking with different eyes than we're at, and they're just seeing some crazy looking stuff to them. Not everyone is just us and laughing at. We're used to memes. Everything's funny. We can drop a meme on Facebook and we all laugh at it or whatever. The world is not just. Well, maybe it is getting to be a bunch of memes, but I think the world is more than just memes. Anyway, okay, here's Mike says, what happens in Trump Gaza stays in Trump Gaza. That's hilarious. That is funny.
Had to see that one coming.
That is funny. Cindy Jones, LOL. See, they're loving this stuff. Look at Mr. Sandy LaFontaine. Trump Gaza, magnificent. See, now I may lose half of my conservative audience here. I don't know, but
I'm a bad judge because I have an extremely dark sense of humor.
Yeah,
and when things get dark and nasty and rotten in the world, I laugh about it. It's the only way I can handle it. So it's just a funny meme to me.
Well, can something?
I don't think they should have republished it. But at the same end, it's just goofy, insane. It's something that'll never happen. It's just nonsense. It's just
can something be
part of the dumb AI stuff that's out there?
Right?
Too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it
makes fun of itself.
To me, it's about reading the room. I mean,
yeah,
I agree. I got a dark sense of humor. I like cynicism. Sometimes it's funny, but you got to read the room too. And I think that's where it fails to read the room.
Can something be funny? Like I kind of laughed when I first saw this. It was kind of chuckled. Can something be funny and stupid at the same time?
Yes,
absolutely.
Something funny and ill-advised at the same time.
Exactly. And that's my point, right? It's like you can crack that joke, but you got to think 2 or 3 steps ahead and go, well, yeah, maybe I'll keep it to myself, or maybe I'll, and that's all. And we'll see, right? Time will tell, right? As it plays out, will it backfire? Will it be something that's thrown in his face later when he's trying to make another deal, right? We'll see.
Well, good luck. You know what? Also, somebody's got to peacekeep in Gaza. If they're really going to move people out temporarily and clean up and do a Trump Gaza hotel or whatever it's going to be. I'm kind of joking a little bit. I don't think it's they're joking in the meme, but you have to get people like Reagan had peacekeepers in Lebanon and 283 of them were killed by a bomb. So these people
what they're doing in Gaza's never been done in modern times. I mean, they're literally moving large populations by force. Agree or disagree with it.
Are they doing that right now?
They're doing it right now.
They're doing it right now. They're moving them out.
they've leveled the place. There's not much
No, yeah,
left.
it's not
If
really
they
livable,
wanted to
right?
stick around, there's not much to work
Right.
with there.
I saw some video the other day, and
It's just a
not
matter of
livable.
how organized the
But there's
movement
nowhere
happens.
for
It's
them to
not
go.
whether they're moving. They will go somewhere because there's
Jordan doesn't want them. Egypt said they don't want
no.
them.
Yeah, that's
They've already got new agreements with them saying that they will take them now.
Really.
See, these
This
guys.
is-
These
this is
one
newer
thing.
news that they will take them. There will be someone that will take them.
One thing Trump does is in his team, they do move fast. I got to give him credit. Now, I want to get through a few more things because time is moving, and I want to kind of get a few more things here. And I appreciate you guys' time with this, but I want to ask a few more questions. This kind of shifts the thing more into a very serious tone here. I would hear certain things that I don't know are true or not because we're halfway around the world, and we get RT or Russian Times over here, and then we get Ukrainian stuff over here. And we're constantly trying to figure out what is true and what isn't true. What is pure propaganda versus the truth, right? That's part of the reason I did the show tonight. So there was a sense early on, and I didn't look into this. I have to admit, I didn't look into this too much early on. But it happened. I don't know how much is still going on, but from what I can tell, it happened. And that is Russia targeted civilians. And I'm not saying it never happens in war and they're the first ones to ever do it or anything like that. But is it true that Russia targets civilians more than the average bear, no pun intended? Does anybody know this?
I think it's kind of a talking point that's not useful unless you're willing to do something about it. And the world is not willing to do anything about Geneva Convention rules right now when it comes to Russia. They're not willing to hold their feet to the fire. They're not willing to keep them from, they're not willing to push them back from invading. What's going to end up happening is they're going to make an agreement and Russia's going to keep a whole lot of Ukraine for themselves. That's just how it's going to be.
Right.
There's no way around it. And it doesn't matter what they did. They could have rounded up Ukrainians and put them into concentration camps and gassed them. It doesn't matter because no one's willing to fight them right now.
Well, and also, again, looking at my own side, so to speak, I see this on both sides. We talk about the YouTube algorithm and the way that, you watch something and they keep giving you more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. They don't give you, they're not interested in educating you. They're interested in getting you to watch videos. But I see this happening. Each side has their videos and they have their own, narrative. And I don't think either side's narrative is exactly correct. I think there's some truth somewhere in between them. But for instance, let me just show you this one. I think it's kind of interesting. Let me see if we can pop this up here. This is Mariupol, by the way.
Good evening to you, Nora. Officials from both Russia and Ukraine have expressed optimism today that peace talks were making progress, but there is no hint of these horrors coming to an end. We warn that our report includes some images that some might find disturbing. Ukrainian officials tonight accused the Russian military of bombing this theater in Mariupol where hundreds of people had taken refuge in the hope of some protection from the bombardment. A satellite image before the bombing shows the building intact with the word children in Russian lettering outside. In the besieged port city, even getting into the hospital means running a gauntlet of bombs and bullets. Inside, a vision of hell. Rescue teams stretcher in civilians of shelling faster than medics can treat them. Many already too far gone to be saved. An exhausted doctor covers the body of a 3-week-old baby. Down in the basement, he says, these are all the people we couldn't save. Help Mariupol, pleads resident Olga Budko. Children, women are being killed. Why? Genocide? Allegations of Russian troops intentionally targeting civilians run up and down the country. Residents scramble for cover in Skadovsk in the south. Ukrainian officials say 10 people were shot dead while standing in line for bread in the northern city of Chernihiv. Explosions echoed and plumes of smoke rose around the capital today as the Ukrainian military said its forces mounted a counteroffensive in suburbs to the north. Cell phone footage appears to capture a missile streaking across the city's skies. Once again this morning, the smoldering aftermath of another apartment building that came under attack overnight as Russian forces continue to bombard the capital. The ceaseless shelling of Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv left a market and school in flames and left trapped residents to wonder, 3 weeks under siege since the invasion began, whether any end is in sight.
So, oop. There we go. So I'm just putting this in to give some perspective of stuff I never thought about that much. And I don't think most people on the right, now there's probably people who are going to say this is fake. This is, this is all because it's put on a CBS, for instance. Oh, CBS is fake news.
Yeah.
It's not real. It looks real to me. And I think this is Mariupol, I believe. And there were other cities they were talking about.
Kharkiv and Mariupol. Yeah.
These guys, that's the other thing. These guys were attacked. I mean, again, I'm not an apologist for Zelensky, but I don't see how we get around. Now, you say Russia had its reasons, but they attacked, and it seemed like in a very brutal way. And civilians apparently were targeted. I mean, I did a little research on it, and it sounds like they were targeted, directly on purpose.
Right.
And I don't know how you explain that away, human to human wise.
You can't, and that's why it is inexcusable. It's irresponsible, like I mentioned before, to keep poking the proverbial bear.
Right.
It's like, why is war even on the table with Ukraine at all? Just because you can get billions of dollars, it's so ridiculous. It's like, why aren't you guys negotiating with Putin? Why aren't you guys trying to figure out a way to avoid murdering your own citizens, having your own citizens murdered by this guy? It's like they didn't take him seriously at all, and that's what frustrates me. It's like, you guys, and I don't mean you, I mean, these politicals, it's like they want to go to war and they bang the drums of war. And it's like, are you even thinking about what's going to happen here? Like, people are going to be murdered. And because you want this country to be in NATO for some reason. And it's like, why? Like, let's think about this and figure out a better way to go about this so that maybe there is no aggression, right? It's almost like it's either war or nothing. And yet that's not reality, right? Like, billions of people live next door to each other every day and never fight each other.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, so you mean to tell me you can't figure out how to avoid an international war, right? To keep schools from being bombed? Like, it's so ridiculous. These people are supposed to be leaders. They're supposed to be better, and clearly they're not, right?
Well,
because the answer is always war. It's always, let's go murder each other.
And they had an opportunity, from what I understand, to have peace. Well, of course, I mean, anyone has an opportunity to have peace at any given time, but they had an opportunity early on. And I understand that the Biden administration went to them and told Zelensky, no, don't take the peace initiative. And they kept pushing the war. Why? So what is it? Are these people crazy in some kind of way?
You understand that from where? Who told you this? And he said, so the Biden administration told them not to settle, and Zelensky.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't have it in front of me, but I've read several sources said that the Biden administration.
A lot of sources too. That doesn't make it accurate or correct. So.
Yeah, but just even if you don't know that for sure, just look at what's happened and the way the Biden administration dealt with the war. They kept escalating the war. Even before Biden got out of power, he was escalating the war and allowing them. All of a sudden, he wasn't allowing the Ukrainians to have long-range missiles that the U.S. had to operate, right? But all of a sudden, when it became time to Trump to get in there, it seemed like he was just throwing stuff into the works, trying to mess up Trump's administration. Why was he not? Why did he not okay that earlier? And then when it got late in the game, when Trump was going to come in,
escalate the whole thing, and then the Russians were striking from farther out with long-range missiles. So they're
okay.
we have to be able to reach the locations where the Russians are.
Okay.
Attacking.
So was Russia doing that first? I'm asking. I don't really know. Were they
Yeah.
doing that first? Okay.
So
Well, there's a lot of wrinkles in all of this.
sure, it's not that simple.
One of the most no, but I mean I agree with everything that's being said. That just from where we're at right now, because we go back and say, well, what did they do wrong that created the war? And that's that's a moot point. It's like why even go down that road? Because we can't put the genie back in the bottle right
But
now.
why did it last 3 years though? Why did it last 3 years?
Well, and that's another thing that we can't change at this point. We can only work with what we're dealing with. Look at what just happened. The interesting thing about those attacks isn't that they were hitting civilians. They've always hit civilians. They don't have many other targets to hit in Ukraine that they go after civilians. But where they're going after civilians is key.
But that's not the way that war. I don't want to be like Mr.
I'm sorry. When you're
Marcus
invading
of
a
Queensberry
country,
rules here, but
no, when you're invading a country, you have to hit civilians. There's no other way to be able to pull the populace down to paying attention to you.
So is that done by everybody then? Everybody's going after civilians?
How many people are invading other countries? It doesn't happen that often. Look at Hitler, look at any of the main usual sources of people that go in and invade a country by force. They have to hit civilians. I'm not defending it. I'm not saying it's a good thing. But look at where it's happening though. He's hitting eastern cities. Mariupol, Kharkiv, these are places that he's probably going to keep anyways. So why is he doing it there?
Why is he doing that then?
He's doing it there. It's my guess. He's doing it there to control the population, to put them in check. He's not going to be able to do it he's not going to be able to do it big and bold after they take over. But they have to know who the new boss is. And I know there's this big talk about how they're all pro-Russian anyways. Well, I mean, he's been moving Russians into there for almost 20 years into the east. They've been literally paying people to move into eastern Ukraine so that they could slowly move in there. So there is a large Russian population, but he's bombing civilians in the places that he's probably going to have control over in the next few months.
Okay, so
they're still targeting Kyiv and some energy source structures and other infrastructure in the west and central. It's not all
sure.
Right.
They're still hitting hard, but wouldn't you?
Okay.
If you were truly wanting to take over, why not fly into Kyiv, take over the government, and just be done with it? Because this is bigger than that.
The first beginning of the war, they thought they were going to go right into Kyiv.
They thought they were. They thought absolutely,
right.
But at this point, this is all gameplay.
What are you getting at, Brian? You're saying they would have gone into Kyiv, and it seems like they would have just gone on and taken it. But why?
They tried. They circled it. They thought it was going to be over within the first couple weeks, and that's when they started pumping money and defenses in there from other countries.
Okay, so Mike Jones says near the end of the Biden administration, they were considering giving Ukraine nukes. I don't know if that was. Mike follows this stuff pretty closely, so he's probably right.
That's the whole point, right? If this country joins NATO, they're going to position weapons pointed right at Russia. Like there's going to be European and American bases there, and military presence. There's
military presence on the border now with Finland. It's not. What is the difference?
I know that, but okay. So now we got another border. That's what I'm saying, man. It's like you have to understand. Like this is World War III at the beginning, right? If Russia escalates, right? You're saying why didn't he take over Kiev? Maybe he's trying to avoid a war. Maybe he's not trying to escalate it anymore. But if he does, he's got China's backing. You understand? Like this is not like just Russia and Ukraine.
Right, of course.
Global aggression.
We all agree on that.
Everybody's even Putin is tiptoeing a bit. You understand? It's like he can go in and just sweep the whole country, right? He has the ability because he can get China's backing, right?
He doesn't have that ability. He tried that. He wanted to take the whole country. Now
I know that, but he can't do that because that's global war. That's
it brings global. Do we agree?
That's the U.S. That's Europe. That's That's chaos, man, and
Right. So
nobody wants that.
do we agree? Do we agree now, the four of us at least, that the war is crazy? At least at this point, if there was a reason for it to begin with, I mean, if you get invaded, you're going to defend your country, right? I mean, if you're in your Ukraine situation, but at a certain point, do we agree this stuff is crazy? Or is there there's still people out there, I think, that would say that Ukraine can win still. We have to keep funding them. Is anybody here say that?
I don't think anyone sees that, but
Ukraine
what do
does
you
not
do
win.
if you have, let's say the United States got invaded and we're tired of war. All right, we're going to give Mexico back, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, or there's going to be some people say, we're never going to cede all of U.S. territory. We're going to fight till we repel Mexico. So I mean, you have to look at the perspective.
A U.S. war is way different because you got armed citizenry along with military. It's a whole different dynamic. Ukraine doesn't have that necessarily. That's what I'm saying. Like,
so you're saying it would be okay for us to continue fighting so we get all the territory
I'm
back?
saying the context is very different.
Well, wait. We're also talking about what Ukraine wants to do. They're free to go keep defending themselves.
Yeah,
but the question is the U.S. going to keep backing them? And is Europe going to back them?
Is it even wise to do it? They wouldn't be in the war if they didn't have the backing.
No, well, the Europeans are talking about stepping up more. They've actually
they haven't even defended themselves, right? I mean, they haven't even defended NATO, right? Barely, right?
The Europeans have actually contributed more money in total than the U.S.
The European has?
Yes.
I doubt that.
Really?
I
didn't.
That'd be interesting.
Multiple sources.
I
I'm not saying what we did is insignificant. Please continue. But
okay, do we?
And then maybe we back. We step away and let them figure it out, like they said they might.
And this is a key piece that I did not see coming. I would never came up with it on my own. I'm not even sure I agree with it. But Trump did something either intentionally or unintentionally that I think was rather brilliant. He removed NATO out of the discussion. And he said, okay, we're not going to deal with NATO anymore. We're setting that aside. And by doing that, he's taken the one main argument that Russia has.
Right.
But then he's included extra security. The idea is that there will be security, even though the official security group isn't going to be in there. So they can still have everything they want.
Too. Remember that?
What's that, Mark?
He also
say it again.
Out of the discussion became a bilateral talks without Ukraine having to say on that.
And I don't know the whole thing there, but part of that may have been that the U.S. hasn't really talked to Russia since in the whole Biden administration, and they were kind of getting used to talking to them again. On the other hand, I think that Trump wanted to kneecap Zelensky also, right, which he pretty much did. Yeah. So
there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
And one of the parts was this minerals deal.
Yeah,
and they just announced that that's been put through, that there's been some agreement in terms of the fact that America is going to have options into the mineral resources in Ukraine.
Right.
That was a whole lot of what a lot of this Trump back and forth with Zelensky has been about. I know everyone gets worked up because of the specifics, because him calling him a dictator and him saying that he's reading false news and all this. I don't think any of that's real. I think that's all a game that's being played to get the negotiations done. What's going to be interesting is when things are settled in a peace deal with Putin. That is when things get interesting, because we have already set ourselves on the side of Ukraine. Trump hasn't changed that. He can make fun of Zelensky all he wants. We're marrying Ukraine now.
It sounds like Trump made a great deal to get $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals, things that use in computers and things that we really need, in exchange for, I guess we've given them something like 267 billion or something so far. So it sounds like he made actually a great deal for these minerals.
He gave America something to lose.
Yeah.
We didn't have, like Jerry was saying, a lot of people wouldn't see why we would even be helping Ukraine. Now, I understand that you got to support the free people from being taken over by the tyrants and everything, but you got to pick your battles. You can't run them all over the place. By doing this, And whether Trump's doing it on purpose or whether he's stumbling into it, he's given America something to lose over there. He's given us something to gain instead of always putting money
Well,
after
I think
money.
I think in that case he's reading the room, right? The sentiment over here is, hey, you need to make government more efficient, and where's that money going? Where's the accountability? So now he's leveraging that and saying, hey, give us something, so
Yeah,
that I can show, hey, we're getting back some of that investment in Ukraine, right?
for sure.
We're getting that money back. So I agree. Yeah, I think that's probably the play he's going for, is to kind of assuage the sentiment over here towards the government and towards the spending overseas, to say, hey, at least we got something in return, right?
People have
Yeah.
to remember at the end of the day that all that money, with the hundreds of billions, a lot of that went to American defense manufacturers, good or bad.
It's true.
It
Yeah.
didn't. Well, that it wasn't. There's just people like, this is a money laundering scheme, and this isn't Iraq where they were dumping pallets of tens of
It's
thousands.
never a vacuum. It's a world. It's a
Well,
it's a world economy for sure.
It was a money laundering scheme. The question is, who was doing the laundering? Because
Right.
Mike just pointed out here, America gave Ukraine 177 billion, and Zelensky says we received just over 75. So I'm not a great math guy, but I can tell that 177 billion is a lot more than 75 billion. So where'd that extra money go?
Right.
Well, there's probably one, you can say there's a dispute what if he's trying to be like a Trump and saying, well, we didn't get that much, and they're playing games with the numbers, or
Somebody should know where the money went, or they. Yeah.
You're assuming that who's, are they placing a value on the weapons? Is it direct aid? They weren't sending. I know there was some cash in over, but mostly it was.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It was-
The question is the semantics of it, right? When you're
Right,
saying
but
that number,
obviously we want to know. I mean, we have a right as taxpayers and citizens to know, was it 75? Was it 177? Like you said
Yeah.
earlier, it's probably somewhere in the middle, and which is still murky. We don't like that,
Okay, so we're gonna wind down. One thing I wanted to say about the thing with the Biden administration, you're going to disagree with me, probably, Mark, on this, but I didn't trust the Biden administration at all. I never felt comfortable with them militarily or what. They just didn't seem to have any seriousness to when they would say something. And so I would almost rather.
You mean serious like Trump's Gaza cartoon today?
Not that serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they. Now I forgot my train. I'm thinking of that video in my mind now. But when they would do something, I'd almost rather they didn't do anything than to get us into something that I felt like they weren't going to handle correctly. And love them or hate them, and I voted for Trump 3 times, and I proudly did so. And I would vote for him again over Biden or Kamala Harris or somebody for sure. But I would trust him more as a wartime guy in general by far than I would trust most Democrats these days. And there's some, I don't talk about a JFK or somebody Harry S. Truman, or somebody who's like somebody who's like a veteran who really knew how to fight and a serious guy. I mean, kind of like the new kind of Democrats. I don't trust them to run wars.
well, the new Democrats are basically neocons. I mean, they love war all of a sudden. And
Right. Everything switched. Everything switched, right?
And I think Trump.
How exactly do they love war? Because they aided a country. What does that mean?
No. I'll tell you why, Mark. Because in the old days, remember, like when we were growing up, and you had like the nuclear freeze movement, and you had the get us out of every war. All the hippies were always against wars, no matter where they were. They were against Vietnam. They were against whatever.
Yep.
But now they did switch to being pro-war in the sense of being Ukraine, right? They were flying the Ukraine flag everywhere.
Helping one country doesn't make them suddenly these neocon war hawks. Biden didn't say, let's go back and invade Syria or Iraq. You could argue.
What country did the hippies go for? What country would the hippies support?
No, it's also drone strikes under Obama. And I mean, they've been pro-war for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Clinton,
go ahead, Brian. I think you want to get in.
And that if you just want to keep it to the subject of Ukraine and how he handled Ukraine, the one thing Biden did not do that looks purposeful is he removed a whole lot of the strength and backing and threat that we had against Russia. Even Trump was saying when he was running for office, and who knows how true these conversations were, he supposedly told Putin that if you even try anything, you're dead. We got you. You're done.
Yeah.
You don't try nothing. And no movement on that border was made for those 4 years. Crimea happened before this invasion, and the other invasions happened after. But during the Biden years, by not being strong, he encouraged the bully. And that's the one thing, if not, even if it wasn't purposeful, even if he isn't pro-war, his actions created war.
And that's the thing too.
You got a good argument there. I think the neocon argument is kind of specious. He did leave Afghanistan. Obviously, that was a mess.
Yeah.
In the withdrawal, but I don't think, and there's been drone strikes, but I don't think as a party they're necessarily a pro-war
No,
party.
not as a party.
They don't
I agree
promote
with
it.
that. That's what I'm saying. The people that are in place that we call Democrats, the Obamas, et cetera, Bidens, I don't think they're actual Democrats. I think they are neocons. I don't think the Democratic Party as a party are neocons, though.
I think there's a big difference
No different than the Republicans being neocons, or like every Republican is not a neocon. And the neocons are people that love war. They still want to go to war with Iraq and Iran. They still want to go to the Middle East. Ukraine is another notch in their belt. They love war, and that's kind of what I'm saying when I say they're neocons. They love war, because if you look at Trump in his first administration, he pulls out of Afghanistan. He does the order to pull out of Afghanistan. Right now, the Biden administration, they screwed it up, but it's like he's been the most anti-war president we've had in decades, and now here he is trying to end another war with Ukraine, and it's like that's why he's a better choice. Good, bad, or indifferent. I want a president that's going to keep us out of war.
I don't think anybody
plus with Trump right now.
I don't think anybody can. I don't think anybody can argue that. I don't think you would argue that, Mark. I mean, Trump has been better for peace in general, and look at the Abraham Accords too in the Middle East. Yeah, he's been better for peace than any president.
What did the Abraham Accords actually accomplish? Qatar and Morocco talk to Israel now.
What's wrong with that?
Did that stop anything of Gaza and Yemen and the Houthis?
Well, look at it this way.
There was a lot less.
I'm just saying it's.
Okay.
It's
so when did all that aggression
it's a positive, but it's not. It wasn't.
But what happened? When did all this new aggression occur with Gaza and everything?
Right.
Still under Biden.
Well, but see, this is why does everyone always says it always comes back to America. America is not responsible. America doesn't.
No, you're right. We're not. But America is a figurehead, and that's the problem, right? Is that we have our tentacles everywhere.
The Gaza war. If you look back, Israel and Saudi Arabia are getting close to signing an agreement, and Hamas moved on. They didn't want to see that happen.
Right.
So there's way more to it than every time it's America. We're not the center of the universe.
Yeah, but you know what?
We're trying to be.
We're trying to be. But you know what? Trump has, again, we have to be fair here. We have to look at it as it is, and as I can see it, Trump has a certain strength that sometimes others don't have. Look at even the Gaza thing with the hostages. They left these hostages like Auschwitz survivors for months. Biden wasn't doing anything to get them out. And now all of a sudden, as soon as
generalities, there was all sorts of negotiations, and
but look what happened. All of a sudden, as soon as Trump's going to get into power, all of a sudden the hostages start coming out. That's not a coincidence.
I'm not saying it's not a coincidence, but you're saying they did nothing. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's not that they did nothing.
You have a crazy person, and they say, we don't even want to take a chance of this guy because if they're not released,
that's good. That's a good strategy. Make them think you're crazy.
That's the whole point. Is being an effective leader.
Look at Gran Torino. Okay, one of my favorites. I had to get a Gran Torino reference in there.
I like that movie. So.
I love that movie.
It is a good movie.
Brian, want to say something here? We got to wind up, so you're all going to have a shot here. So, by the way, where did you want to say something? And then we're going to end it up. Brian, did you want to say something?
Gran Torino's a great movie.
Oh yeah,
we all agree on something.
We all agree on that.
What this really comes down to is people have got to look a little broader at the big picture. What keeps a lot of these people in power is the fact that they have a bigger picture. Putin isn't looking at what's happening this week. He's looking at what's happening 5-10 years from now. He has that perspective, and anybody that looks at him can tell that he's thinking that. And a lot of the other global leaders are doing that. All you got to know is this is leading to to a ceasefire. Everything that happens that before then is all posturing to put themselves in the position for a good place when the ceasefire happens.
And we have to kind of look at that too. We kind of have to go back to the little Marco stuff and the little Rocket Man stuff. And obviously, Trump has a way of doing certain things. He will insult you, whether you're friend or foe, and as a way to get you to the bargaining table, usually, right? That's what was your point, I think, Brian.
It's been his life.
That's what he does.
He's done business negotiation 101. That's how.
Read the dang book, right? Read the book. Yeah. Right. So anyway, Brian J. Pombo, BrianJPombo.live. Thank you, Brian. And Marc Yaffee, laughwithmark.com. Thank you, Mark. Jerry McClellan, fantasticdimension.com. I really feel like showing your guys' sites before we go, but we're probably far into this thing. Next time I'm going to show you guys. Do you want me to show? I can show it your site. Do you guys want to show your sites? You want? I could pull up a Mark joke right now.
I think they've got hostages now, Jared.
What's that? What'd you say, Brian?
Play Mark.
I'm going to play Mark. Do you mind if I do, Mark? A joke or two?
Fantastic dimension, to be honest. But yeah, go
ahead.
Okay.
Let me see both. Hey, what the heck? It's late. If anybody's sticking around still, they'll see this, right? Here, I want to bring this one in then. What the heck? We're having fun, right? We got to end with a little.
You do a great job, by the way.
Thank you. But we got to end with a little fun here. Okay. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to add you in. Here we go. A little. Oh wait, I thought I had it. There we go. Here we go. A little humor from Mark. These are serious subjects. We got to lighten them up a little bit. No Trump AI, Trump Middle East videos. We're just going to do a Mark thing right now. Here we go.
Political.
Love this job. I get to travel all over. I got to go to New York City, the city that never sleeps. Yeah, because no one can afford an apartment with a bed. I looked into moving to New York City for comedy, affordable housing options, jail, rehab, and the Bronx Zoo. But New York is fun, though, man. It's got energy, it's got excitement and passion, and very patriotic. New York City, very patriotic. Red, white, and blue everywhere. I'm like, man, I have never seen so many Puerto Rican flags in my life.
That's a good one. All right, you want the rest of that? You got to go to laugh with Mark, okay? And this dude's a funny dude, and he works the game, man. He's a pro. Mark is a pro. Pull you all back up here. But I'm gonna, you know what, Jerry? I'm gonna play a little bit of yours too, the beginning of that, if you don't mind. I think people should. I think people should see Jerry's too. Yeah. Okay. Here's where's your site, man? Here we are. Okay. Here we go. And the website is called Jerry McClellan. Okay, fantasticdimension.com. Okay, here you go. Here's a little taste of Jerry's site. Here's the beginning when you get onto his site. Here's what you're going to see.
Your mind is there, super galactic trip to the promised land. Drifting down the space, breaking through the smoke. A cosmic revelation, story and untold. In this dimension, we're about to ascend. Let's go into the heavens, where the magic never ends. Super galactic, fantastic dimension. Pay attention.
You guys are going to have to go to Jerry's site, see, to get the rest of that, right?
And if you go, you can get a free digital comic if you join my email list.
Oh, cool. People probably don't know like what exactly that is, but can you give us a nutshell? Like in just
it's a graphic novel, it's a comic book series, original IP created by me and my oldest son. We're both writing it, and it's all original characters, original story, and like I said, there's a short digital comic available. If you want to go join our email list, you'll get a link. You can read it and give us feedback. Let us know if you like it. And we're going to be doing some crowdfunding to fund the rest of the book and do a bigger book. It's a way bigger story. It's a whole series. So, and we're also talking about trying to get an animated series made. And I'm talking to, animation studios and producers, and we're trying to get funding. So
wow, there's a lot there. So we're going to have to, maybe we'll have you on another time and you can you can get back. Yeah, because there's a lot there. Brian J. Pombo.
Oh yeah, not much to see there. It's just a YouTube page. Haven't even updated it much lately. But I wrote a book and I have a little bit of background in business strategy and so forth. So if you're interested in any of that, you check it out.
I will actually. That sounds good.
Yeah, Brian is a very he really knows business well. I think did I knock. Where did Brian go? Brian, I took you out. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm pushing all these buttons like a madman. Like, and this must be the way that Elon Musk works. He's just pushing buttons all the time. Brian J. Pombo, BrianJPombo.live for more. And he knows a lot about business, how to start. You want to start a business. You're not sure like which way to go in your business. He'll help you figure it all out and set you on the right track. And I know you also know a lot about marketing as well. And look at the books behind this guy. Just look at his bookshelf. It's all marketing and really, really cool stuff. So he knows his stuff. Anyway, I think we talked it out for now. Where are we going? Nobody knows where this thing is going. Maybe they're going to have a rare earth mineral deal so the American people can recoup something out of this war. I want to thank all you guys you guys for coming on. I want to thank the people that are in the chat too. It's hard to get to a lot of the chats. I do as best as I can here, but I want to thank you guys for coming. We can do more anytime. There's always stuff that comes up, but I really appreciate you guys for letting it all hang out here, and I wish you guys the best with all the stuff that you're doing. And I think we're out of here.
Awesome.
Thanks. See you.
All right,
guys. It was great.
See you guys.
See ya. That's funny. I put the intro on. It's supposed to be the outro. Outro time. Hit it.
That's funny. You get the hang of it, right?
Yeah.